Interview with the Vampire. "I see," said the vampire, and slowly he walked across the room to the window. For a long time he stood there, looking out at Divisadero Street. The boy could see the room more clearly now. A round table, some chairs, a mirror. He put his briefcase on the table and waited. "How much tape do you have, young man?" asked the vampire, turning to the boy. "Is there enough for the story of a life?" "Yes, if it's a good life. Sometimes I interview 3 or 4 people a night, if I'm lucky, but it should be a good story." "It is a good story," said the vampire. "I would like to tell you the story of my life. I would really like to do that." "Great," said the boy. Quickly he took out a small tape recorder from his briefcase and checked the batteries. "I really want to hear why you believe this, why you—" "No," said the vampire. "We can't begin like that. Is your equipment ready?" "Yeah," said the boy. "Then sit down. I'll turn on the light." "But I thought that vampires didn't like the light," said the boy. Then he stopped. The vampire was watching him. The boy couldn't see his face now, only the dark figure. He wanted to say something again, but he said nothing. And then the vampire walked to the table and turned on the light. The boy was shocked. "Dear God!" he whispered, looking at the vampire. The vampire was all white like a marble statue, but his eyes were bright and green. The vampire smiled sadly and asked, "Do you see?" The boy's eyes moved slowly over the fine black coat he'd seen in the bar, the black silk tie, and the white shirt that was as white as the vampire's body. He stared at the vampire's black hair. "Now, do you still want the interview?" the vampire asked. The boy's mouth was open. He nodded and said, "Yeah." The vampire sat down opposite him and said gently, "Don't be afraid. Just start the tape recorder. Believe me, I won't hurt you. I want this chance. It's more important to me than you can understand now." The boy was nervous, but he pressed the button and started the interview. "You weren't always a vampire, were you?" he began. "No," answered the vampire. "I was 25 when I became a vampire, and the year was 1791. The boy was shocked by the date, and then he asked, "How did it happen?" "There is a simple answer to that question, and I don't want to give simple answers," said the vampire. "I want to tell you the real story. I've only told this story to one other person, and that was so long ago." "Yes, of course," the boy said quickly. "We were living in Louisiana then. We'd had 2 plantations on the Mississippi River near New Orleans." "Oh, that's the accent," the boy said. For a moment the vampire looked at him. "I have an accent?" he asked and began to laugh. "I noticed it in the bar when I met you," explained the boy. "It's all right," the vampire said. "I forget about it from time to time, but let me go on." "Please," said the boy. "I was talking about the plantations. Our life there was luxurious and simple, but we loved it." The vampire smiled. "Yes, we all loved it, all except my brother Paul. I don't think that he ever complained, but I knew how he felt. My father was dead then, and I was head of the family. and I had to protect him from my mother and sister. They wanted to take him to New Orleans for parties, but he hated these things. He loved prayers and books about saints. Finally, I built him a little oratory, where he spent most of the days. It was strange, really. He was so different from us, so different from everyone. And I was so ordinary. There was nothing special about me. The vampire smiled again. Sometimes in the evening I went out to him and told him about my troubles, the difficulties I had with the slaves or the weather, all the problems we had. He listened, making only some comments, but when I left him, I had the feeling that he had solved everything for me. I thought that I would do anything to help him become a priest when the time came. Of course, I was wrong. The vampire stopped. For a moment, the boy only looked at him as if he could not find the right words. "Didn't he want to be a priest?" he finally asked. The vampire studied the young man for a while. Then he said, "I meant that I was wrong about myself, about my helping him." He began to see visions. "Real visions?" the boy asked. "I didn't think so," the vampire answered. "It happened when he was 15. He was very handsome then, and his large blue eyes were like an ocean. When he began to see visions, he stopped eating his meals. He lived in the oratory. At any time I could find him there, standing before the altar. He stopped taking care of the candles or the altar cloths or the fallen leaves in the oratory. One night I stood watching him for 1 hour, during which he didn't move from his place. All the slaves thought that he was mad. Then he told me about the visions. Both Saint Dominic and the Virgin Mary had come to see him in the oratory. They had told him to sell all our property in Louisiana, everything we had, and use the money to do God's work. My brother was going to be a great religious leader. Of course, he didn't have his own money, so he wanted me to sell the plantations and our houses in New Orleans and give the money to him. Again, the vampire stopped. "And," the boy whispered, "did you sell the plantations?" "No," said the vampire. "I laughed at him, and he became mad at me. Then one evening he came to my room to talk to me. He said that his ideas came from the Virgin Mary herself. Who was I to say no? But the more he insisted, the more I laughed. It was nonsense, I told him, the product of his imagination. The oratory was a mistake, I said to him. He should go to school in New Orleans and get it all out of his head. I don't remember all that I said, but I remember feeling angry and disappointed. I didn't believe him at all. "But that's understandable," said the boy quickly. "I mean, almost no one believes in such things." "Is that so?" The vampire looked at the boy. "I loved my brother, as I told you, and sometimes I believed that he was a real saint who would soon become a priest. And if someone told me of a saint who saw visions, I would believe it. I was a Catholic. I believed in saints. I went to churches. I knew their pictures, their symbols, their names. But I couldn't believe my brother. Why? Because he was my brother. Do you see?" The boy thought about it before he answered, and then he said yes. "Maybe he really saw the visions," said the vampire. "I know that he believed in them, but as soon as he left my room, he was dead." "How?" the boy asked. "He stood for a moment at the top of the brick stairs, and then he fell. He was dead when I found him at the bottom. His neck was broken." "Did you see how he fell?" asked the boy. "No, but 2 of the servants saw it. They said that he had looked up as if he had seen something in the air. Then his body moved forward. I could not forgive myself. I was responsible for his death," the vampire said, "and everyone else thought so too." "But how could they?" "They simply knew that something had happened between us that evening, that we had a fight before the fall. The servants had heard us. My mother had heard us. My mother was asking me what had happened and why my brother, who was always so quiet, had been shouting. Of course, I didn't say anything. I was so shocked and I didn't want them to know about his visions. The police asked me questions and the priest came to see me. I didn't say anything to them. They all looked at me as if I had killed him. And I felt that I had killed him. I sat in the parlor beside his coffin for 2 days thinking I have killed him. I had laughed at him. I had not believed him. I had not been kind to him. He had fallen because of me." "This really happened, didn't it?" the boy whispered. "You are telling me something that is true." "Yes," said the vampire, looking at him without surprise. "I want to continue." "Yes, please do." "Well, I wanted to sell the plantations. I never wanted to see the house or the oratory again. I moved my mother and sister to one of our houses in New Orleans. Of course, I couldn't forget about my brother. I thought about him all the time. Then the slaves on my plantation saw his ghost on the stairs and panicked. People asked my sister different questions about the incident, and she became hysterical. I drank all the time and seldom was at home. I lived like a man who wanted to die, but who couldn't do it himself. I walked alone at nights and really wanted to be killed. And then I was attacked by a vampire. He caught me one night and left me to die. Or so I thought." "You mean he sucked your blood?" the boy asked. "Yes," the vampire laughed. "He sucked my blood. That is how it's done." "But he lived," said the young man. "Well, I was almost dead, which was good enough for him. When I was found, I was confused and not understanding what had happened to me. I thought that I had a stroke. I wanted to die and had no interest in eating or drinking or talking to the doctor. My mother sent for the priest, and I told him everything about my brother's visions and what I had done. "I know I didn't kill him," I said to the priest finally, "but I cannot live now that he's dead." "Of course you can live," he answered me. "There's nothing wrong with you, Louis. Your mother and your sister need you. The devil made the visions of my brother," he explained. "The devil was sly. The devil threw him down the stairs. Well, this made me mad, and I went wild, almost killing the priest." "But your strength, the vampire?" asked the boy. "I was out of my mind," the vampire explained. "I did things I could not have done in perfect health." "But what happened to you then?" asked the boy. The vampire laughed. "Well, the vampire came back that night. You see, he wanted my plantation. Point de luck." It was very late, after my sister, who was watching me, had fallen asleep. I can remember it as if it was yesterday. He came in front He came in from the yard, opening the doors without a sound, a tall man with blonde hair. My tired sister didn't wake up until the next morning, but then I had already changed. "What was this change?" asked the boy. The vampire sighed. "At first, I thought that he was another doctor, but when he stepped closer to my bed, I saw his face in the lamplight and understood that he was not an ordinary man at all. His grey eyes burned with fire, and his long white hands were not of a human being. The moment I saw him, all my sadness and wish to die were gone. When he talked to me about his life and about what I might become, I saw my real gods. The gods of most people, food, drink, and calmness." The boy was confused and amazed. "And so you decided to become a vampire?" he asked. The vampire was quiet for a moment. "Decided? It is not the right word. It was not inevitable, but I can't say that I decided. It seemed to me that no other decision was possible for me then. That morning, when I was not yet a vampire, I saw my last sunrise." The vampire was looking out the window again. "After that, I lay in my bed thinking about all the things the vampire had told me, and then I said goodbye to the sunrise and went out to become a vampire." "Do you miss the sunrises?" the boy asked. "Not really," said the vampire. "There are so many other things, but you want to know how it happened, how I became a vampire, am I right?" "Yes," said the boy. "How did you change?" "I can't tell you exactly," said the vampire. "I can tell you about it with words, but I can't tell you exactly. As I told you, this vampire, Lestat, wanted the plantation, a simple reason for giving me a life which will last until the end of the world. He had human problems, a blind father who didn't know that his son was a vampire. Living in New Orleans had become too difficult for him, and he wanted a plantation. So he, his father, and I went to the plantation the next evening. I continued changing step by step, and the first step was the death of the overseer. Lestat took his life in his sleep. I watched it as a part of my change. The overseer did not die at once. We stood in his bedroom for almost an hour watching him die. I was almost sick from this, but Lestat was laughing, telling me that as a vampire I would laugh at it too. He was wrong about that. I never laugh at death. On the way home I began saying, "I want to die. This is unbearable. Now I am a killer. I can't live. Kill me. Let me go and die." But Lestat only laughed at me. "But could he really let you go?" asked the boy. "I don't know. Knowing Lestat now, I think that he would have killed me. But this was what I wanted and not he, you see? It didn't matter. No, this was what I thought I wanted. So that night he went back to my plantation. The house had been empty for months now. Suddenly, when we were standing on the stairs, he grabbed me. Scared, I fought to free myself from him. "I thought that you wanted to die," Lestat said. "Listen to me, Louis. Now I am going to suck your blood to the end, to death, and I want you to be quiet. Be quiet. Your will must keep you alive." Then I felt his teeth on my neck. The boy's eyes were growing bigger. "Have you ever lost a lot of blood?" asked the vampire. Do you know the feeling? No, the boy said. Candles burned in the upstairs room. Listen, keep your eyes open, Lestat whispered to me. I remember that the sound of his voice raised the hairs all over the body. He bit me. In a couple of minutes, I was weak and paralyzed. I was waiting helplessly. I could not even speak, but I felt pain, and I felt Lestat's teeth. Then he bit his own wrist. His blood dripped onto my shirt and coat. He put his bleeding wrist to my mouth and said, "Louis, drink." And I did. Then something happened. The vampire frowned. The boy sat frozen. I saw nothing as I sucked his blood. And then I heard a sound. It was like a drum getting louder and louder. And then there was another drum. The sound got louder and louder until suddenly Lestat pulled his wrist away from my mouth. I opened my eyes and realized that the first drum was my heart and the second drum was his. I grabbed his wrist and pulled it to my mouth again. Wait, said the boy excitedly. I have to change the tape. The vampire sighed and waited patiently. What happened then? The boy asked. I saw Lestat as I hadn't seen him before. He had seemed white to me, but now I saw that he was radiant. And then I saw that not only Lestat had changed, but all things had changed. It was as if I could see the real colors and shapes for the first time. Then Lestat began to laugh, and I heard his laughter as I had never heard it before. The vampire smiled. Lestat told me to go out into the yard to the trees. That, of course, was wise. When I saw the moon in the sky, I loved it so much that I probably spent an hour looking at it. I heard the night as if it were a chorus of singing voices. Then my body began to ache. I was dying as a human, but I was alive as a vampire, and that scared me. I ran back to the house where Lestat was already working on the plantation papers. Something's happening to me, I shouted. He didn't even look at me. You're dying, that's all. Don't be a fool, he said, still studying the papers. Dying? I shouted, scared. But Lestat only said, It happens to everyone. He didn't help me, he didn't calm me. Lestat was never the vampire I am. Luckily, I was dying fast, and my fear soon disappeared. Suddenly, Lestat got up. Oh, what a fool I am, he began shouting. You'll have to lie down with me this morning because I haven't prepared a coffin for you. The vampire laughed. This made me feel uncomfortable. Lestat was in the bedroom, which was his father's now, telling the old man goodbye and that he would return in the morning. The old man wanted to know where he went, and Lestat became angry. I take care of you, don't I? I've bought a good house for you. If I want to sleep all day and drink all night, I'll do it. The old man started to cry. Such a son, he said, never knowing the truth, of course. He asked for his rosary, and Lestat gave it to him. But, the boy started, rosaries have crosses on them, don't they? Oh, the rumor about crosses, the vampire laughed. Do you mean the vampires are afraid of crosses? Yes, I thought so, said the boy. Nonsense, my friend, nonsense. And what about the keyholes? Can you go through them? I wish I could, laughed the vampire. And what about stakes through the heart? Asked the boy. The same, said the vampire. Nonsense. "So what happened then?" the boy asked. "Did you get into the coffin?" The vampire continued the story. "I had no choice. I asked Lestat to let me stay in the closet, but he left. Don't you know what you are now?" he said angrily. "It's almost dawn. I should let you die. You will die, you know. The sun will destroy the blood that I've given you. Now I'm getting into the coffin. And you should do too, if you know what's good for you." And I did. He shut the lid. Then I asked him if I was completely dead. "No, you're not," he said. "You should be dead by tonight. Go to sleep." Was he right? Were you dead when you woke up? Yes, changed, I'd say. I was alive, but my body was dead. It took some time before all the fluids that the body didn't need were gone from it. But then my body was dead, and my human emotions changed too. The first thing I understood while Lestat and I were getting another coffin from a mortuary was that I didn't like Lestat at all. There was no reason. You probably cannot understand. Before I died, Lestat had been the most exciting person for me, but then he lost his charm. His constant talking was boring. I wasn't like him then, and I learned that on the night of my first kill. The vampire quickly reached across the table and touched the boy's hand. "Oh my!" cried the boy. "Your arm is really long. You reached so far without moving." "No," said the vampire. "I moved forward too fast for you to see. It was an illusion." "You moved forward? But you didn't. You were sitting as you are now." "No," repeated the vampire. "I moved forward as I told you. Here, I'll do it again." And he did it again, and the boy stared at him with confusion and fear. "You still didn't see it," said the vampire. "But if you look at my arm now, it's really not so long. This is the difference between the way you see and I see. My movement looked slow to me. Well, I didn't want to frighten you, but now you can see from this that my return to Point du Lac was full of new things." "Yes," said the boy quietly. The vampire paused for a moment, and then he said, "I was telling you about my first kill. I should say first that the plantation was in chaos. The overseer's body was found, and then the blind old man was found in the house. Everyone thought that I was in New Orleans, but no one could find me in the city. My sister had called the police, and some of them were at Point du Lac when I arrived. It was already quite dark, so the police didn't really see me with my changed body. I talked to them outside the plantation house and didn't go inside. I explained that I'd been to Point du Lac the night before, and the blind old man was my guest, but I hadn't seen the overseer. After that, I had no problem of the plantation itself. My slaves were all confused, and no work had been done. Now we had no overseer, but I had some very smart slaves who could do this job. So I gave the management of things to them and even the overseer's house. 2 young women, slaves, were sent to the house from the fields to care for Lestat's father. I told them that I wanted privacy and asked them to leave me and Lestat alone. I didn't know at the time that these black slaves knew much more about supernatural than the white men, and they would be the first and the only ones who suspected that Lestat and I were not ordinary people. I made a bad mistake. But let me continue my story. I was going to tell you about my first kill.